Welcome to Glisso English. Real life stories.
Imagine you're a successful, smart adult. You have deep thoughts, a great sense of humor, and complex ideas. But the moment you open your mouth to speak English, you feel like a child. You can read a book. You can understand every word in a podcast. Your passive English is perfect. But when it's your turn to speak, you default to simple, basic words like, "Yes, it is good. I agree." It's frustrating. It feels like your real personality is trapped inside a prison. This is called the language plateau. It is the most painful stage of learning a language because your brain understands everything, but your mouth cannot produce it. Today, we're going to look at this struggle through a 10-chapter story of someone dealing with this exact problem in real life. We'll see the shame of the childish echo, the trap of translating in your head, and exactly how they broke through the plateau to finally sound like an adult. If you have ever felt invisible or less intelligent because of your spoken English, this story is for you. Let's dive into Chapter 1. The meeting room was bright, filled with the sharp sound of clinking coffee cups and fast English. Around the long glass table, colleagues debated the new marketing strategy. Vanessa sat quietly, watching them. She understood every single word. She noticed the subtle shifts in their tone, caught their jokes, and instantly spotted a major flaw in their financial plan. In her mind, she had a brilliant objection. She could see the entire argument written out perfectly in her native language, structured, mature, and persuasive. Then the director turned to her. "Vanessa, what do you think about the budget?" Suddenly, the room felt completely silent. Vanessa's heart hammered against her ribs. She opened her mouth, but the brilliant argument in her head collapsed. The complex words vanished. Her brain desperately searched for vocabulary, but all she could find were basic, childish blocks. "I think the budget is too big," she said, her voice small. "We need to make it less." The director blinked, nodded politely, and moved on to someone else. Vanessa stared down at her notebook, her face burning with a familiar, deep shame. She was 32 years old, a manager with a master's degree, yet she had just spoken like a 10-year-old child. The gap between her passive understanding and her active speech felt like a canyon. She wasn't missing information. She was missing a bridge. She was an intellectual trapped in a silent prison, forced to look simple to the outside world. Two days later, Vanessa stood in the crowded lobby of a downtown hotel, holding a lukewarm glass of sparkling water. It was an evening networking event for local professionals, the exact kind of environment she usually avoided. The room buzzed with high-energy conversations, laughter, and the overwhelming sound of native speakers mixing business with casual humor. Vanessa forced herself to stand near a small group discussing economic inflation and real estate trends. An energetic man named Marcus looked at her and asked a direct question about her industry. Vanessa knew exactly what she wanted to say about consumer behavioral shifts and market volatility. But as she spoke, her anxiety triggered the affective filter, a psychological wall that blocked her brain from retrieving advanced words. "The prices are very high now," Vanessa stammered, feeling her face turn warm as the sophisticated ideas melted away. "People do not have enough money, so they do not buy the things they want." Marcus smiled tightly, offered a brief reply, and slowly turned his shoulder to re-engage with the others. Vanessa stood frozen, trapped in the childish echo of her own basic vocabulary. She used words like hi and things because they were safe, but they completely stripped away her intelligence and nuance. Every sentence she managed to produce felt like a weak imitation of a real conversation. She realized that her problem wasn't just a lack of vocabulary words in her memory. The real battle was learning how to lower her stress so her brain could actually access those words under pressure.
Back at her desk the next morning, Vanessa decided she needed a foolproof strategy to stop sounding so basic. Her solution seemed logical. Think the sentence perfectly in her native language first, translate it into English, and then speak. That evening, a coworker named Julian dropped by her office to ask for her input on a project delay. Julian spoke quickly, wrapping up his question and waiting for Vanessa to respond. Inside Vanessa's mind, a complex clockwork mechanism began to turn as she built her perfect response. She selected the precise native words, found their English equivalents, checked the grammar rules, and arranged the structure. But this heavy mental processing created a long, heavy silence in the room. Julian shifted his weight from one foot to the other, looking at his watch as the seconds ticked by awkwardly. By the time Vanessa finally opened her mouth to deliver her carefully constructed sentence, Julian spoke up to fill the silence. "No worries, Vanessa. Just email it to me later when you have a second," he said, offering a reassuring wave before walking away. Vanessa slumped back in her chair, realizing she had fallen directly into the translator's trap. Her obsession with perfect grammar and word-for-word translation was destroying the natural rhythm of human conversation. She didn't need to build flawless individual sentences from scratch every time someone spoke to her. To survive real-time discussions, she had to stop translating and start learning to speak using ready-made language chunks.
For weeks, Vanessa stayed inside her comfortable shell, strictly limiting her English interaction to predictable routines. She could order a vanilla latte perfectly, reply to standard emails, and exchange polite morning greetings with the receptionist. This was her safe zone, a carefully controlled environment where she never made a single grammar mistake. But during a Friday lunch break, she watched her colleagues passionately debating a complex documentary about modern technology. She had fascinating thoughts on artificial intelligence and data privacy, but she kept her mouth firmly shut. She realized that her comfortable safe zone was actually a beautiful prison, keeping her permanently stuck at the intermediate level. By completely avoiding the risk of making mistakes, she was also avoiding any real opportunity for linguistic growth. To break her frustrating language plateau, she had to intentionally step into the uncomfortable stretch zone. She needed to accept that sounding temporarily foolish was the absolute price of admission for speaking fluently. That evening, she promised herself that she would speak up in the next meeting, even if her grammar completely fell apart.
Over the weekend, Vanessa decided to completely change her approach to practicing English at home. She stopped memorizing long vocabulary lists from thick textbooks and opened a short audio clip of an American entrepreneur instead. She was ready to try a technique called shadowing, which involved listening and repeating the words immediately with a microsecond delay. At first, the exercise felt completely unnatural and clumsy as she talked to herself in an empty living room. She stumbled over the fast connections between words, and her jaw muscles felt tight from the unfamiliar movements. But as she listened to the speaker's voice, she stopped analyzing individual grammar rules and focused entirely on the rhythm. She began to notice how words melted together, where the speaker paused for breath, and which syllables carried the emotional weight. Vanessa repeated the same 2-minute audio track 20 times until the phrases began to roll off her tongue without conscious effort. She wasn't just learning new vocabulary words, she was training her mouth and brain to work together as a unit. For the first time in months, she felt a tiny spark of hope that speaking English could eventually become muscle memory rather than mental torture. On Monday morning, Vanessa sat in the conference room for the weekly project review, determined to try her new skills. She knew that fast-paced conversations usually moved too quickly for her brain to find the perfect vocabulary. To survive, she needed a way to buy valuable processing time without completely freezing or looking lost. She had prepared a small mental toolkit of advanced transition phrases, which she called her anchor phrases. When a colleague named Derek made a controversial statement about the timeline, Vanessa saw her chance to speak up. Before her old anxiety could paralyze her, she leaned forward and delivered an anchor phrase with a calm, steady rhythm. "That is an interesting perspective, Derek, but if we look at it from another angle," she said smoothly. Those 12 words flowed out instantly because she had practiced them as a single connected chunk of language. While her mouth was busy pronouncing that smooth introductory phrase, her brain had an extra 3 seconds to organize her next thought. She managed to explain her objection clearly, using the extra time to retrieve the professional words she needed. Derek nodded thoughtfully, appreciating her input, and the conversation continued naturally around the table. Vanessa felt a sudden rush of excitement as she realized she had successfully managed the speed of the meeting. Fluency did not mean having an instant answer for everything. It meant knowing how to bridge the gap while your mind worked.
Despite her small victories in business meetings, Vanessa faced a deeper, more painful psychological hurdle on Friday evening. She joined a group of coworkers at a lively local restaurant to celebrate a team member's birthday. In her native language, Vanessa was known for her quick wit, sharp sarcasm, and warm storytelling. But as jokes flew fast across the dinner table, she found herself sitting in agonizing silence once again. Every time she thought of a funny comeback, she couldn't find the right cultural reference or playful tone to deliver it. By the time she figured out how to phrase a funny comment, the moment had passed, and everyone was already laughing at something else. She felt like a flat, boring, and empty version of herself, a shadow of the dynamic person she actually was. This was her personality crisis, the frustrating feeling that learning a new language was stripping away her true identity. She realized that she wasn't just struggling with grammar, she was grieving the loss of her humor and expressiveness. Later that night, she understood that she had to stop trying to copy her native personality exactly into English. She needed to build a brand new English persona, one that accepted a different kind of humor and a simpler, more direct way of connecting with people.
The following Tuesday afternoon, Vanessa found herself presenting a software update to a potential new client. She was speaking well, using her anchor phrases to maintain a steady professional momentum. Suddenly, right in the middle of an important sentence, her brain hit a solid wall. She completely forgot the advanced word discrepancy, a word she knew perfectly well, but now could not retrieve. In the past, this sudden mental block would have caused her to panic, freeze, and ruin the entire presentation. But this time, Vanessa remembered a vital lesson about communication. Fluency is not about knowing every single word. She quickly shifted her strategy to circumlocution, which meant describing the missing concept using simpler words she already possessed. Without skipping a beat or changing her tone, she adjusted her sentence smoothly. We noticed a small difference in the final numbers, a variation that did not match our original expectations, she explained calmly. The client nodded, completely focused on her meaning, entirely unaware that Vanessa had just forgotten a specific vocabulary term. Vanessa felt a profound sense of relief wash over her as she wrapped up the presentation. She realized that native speakers forget precise words all the time and simply navigate around them using synonyms. By letting go of the need for absolute verbal perfection, she had unlocked the ultimate survival tool for natural speech.
On a rainy Thursday afternoon, a sudden crisis hit the office when the regional director arrived unexpectedly. A major misunderstanding had occurred with their largest client, and the entire team was gathered in the main boardroom. Everyone was tense, defensive, and speaking over one another in fast, emotionally charged English. Vanessa's manager looked overwhelmed and struggled to explain why the project timeline had completely collapsed. Vanessa felt the familiar cold wave of panic hit her stomach, and her old instincts told her to stay invisible. But as she looked at the confused faces around the table, she realized she was the only person who actually knew how to fix the error. She took a deep breath, intentionally lowering her affective filter, and leaned forward into the stressful conversation. "If I may jump in here, I would like to clarify the root cause of this issue," Vanessa said, her voice sounding steady and resonant. She didn't try to translate from her native language, and she didn't worry about making a tiny grammar mistake. Instead, she relied on the ready-made language chunks and natural rhythms she had practiced alone in her living room. She used circumlocution when a specific technical word slipped away, moving forward without a single awkward pause. For 10 minutes, she commandingly explained the solution, answering tough questions from the regional director with maturity and balance. When she finished speaking, the director nodded in deep agreement and said, "Excellent analysis, Vanessa. Let's proceed with your plan." As the meeting adjourned, Vanessa sat back, her heart racing not from fear, but from a profound sense of triumph. She had not spoken flawlessly, but she had successfully defended her team, managed a crisis, and felt like a true professional. 6 months after her boardroom victory, Vanessa stood by the large office window, watching the city traffic move below. She was holding a fresh cup of coffee, casually chatting with Julian about their upcoming weekend plans. As they laughed together over a small joke, Vanessa suddenly paused and caught her breath in quiet surprise. She realized that for the past 10 minutes, she had been speaking English completely automatically, without any conscious mental effort. The painful translator's trap was gone, and the heavy wall of her affective filter had finally dissolved. She was no longer spending energy checking grammar rules or anxiously hunting for the perfect, sophisticated word. She looked back at the past year and realized that her frustrating intermediate plateau was never a permanent cage. It was simply a necessary transition period, a natural stage where her active speaking skills had to catch up to her sharp mind. By letting go of her obsession with absolute perfection, she had discovered her authentic, capable English voice. She still made occasional mistakes, and she still forgot specific vocabulary terms from time to time, but she no longer felt like a helpless child trying to navigate an overwhelming world of adults. She was an intelligent manager, a witty teammate, and an equal participant in every conversation. Vanessa smiled, took a sip of her coffee, and stepped back into the office, ready to speak her mind without fear. Vanessa's journey reminds us that the language plateau is not a wall. It is a bridge that requires time, patience, and the willingness to make mistakes. True fluency is not about speaking a flawless language. It is about letting your true adult personality shine through the words you already know. If Vanessa's story felt familiar to you, remember this: you are not less intelligent just because your English feels basic right now. Your adult mind is completely intact. Your mouth just needs time to catch up. Stop translating every word in your head. Embrace the safe zone deficit and start using anchor phrases to buy yourself time. If you want more real-life stories and practical strategies to break through your English plateau, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Leave a comment below, sharing which chapter felt the most like your own life. You can find all the vocabulary of the story down below in the description box. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next story. Goodbye.